except for maybe one or two people, everybody in the room right now under conditions are with regard to the golf course? Okay, then I'll try and briefly explain for those who aren't aware of what the terms and conditions are of the golf course. And these are the basic terms and conditions that were covered in the letter of intent. First of all, we're talking about the purchase of 2 golf courses. Golf course for the price of $2 million. Included in that are the golf courses, all of the maintenance equipment, albeit much of it is old and needs to be replaced. The 2 common areas maintenance yards associated with each of those golf courses. The deeded property for the Ridgeview pickleball courts that currently exist, as well as the land adjacent to it, which will be available then to build additional pickleball courts. In addition, the RCM, Mr. Robeson, will not be voting his lots associated with it. One of the biggest areas in the negotiation, and is covered in the letter of intent, has to deal with water and our ability to secure effluent water for the preserved golf course. Once again, the reason we need effluent water at the preserved golf course is that the preserved golf course and the whole preserved development area was built later than the remaining areas in Saddlebrook. Because of that, they fall under the Central Arizona Groundwater Replenishment District, CAGRD. CAGRD has fees associated with all potable water that is used. Once you've gotten past your allowance of groundwater, then you start to pay severe fees associated with usage above that amount. In order to ensure, and effluent water does not face those fees. So the existing pipeline that brings effluent water to the preserve is insufficient to get the type of water that we need up there to, we can't avoid it altogether, but drastically eliminate the amount of groundwater that we would use up there. So one of the big portions of the negotiation was that Saddlebrook Utilities Company would build a new pipeline sufficient to get all of the effluent that is produced on a given day and that the preserve can use up to the preserve. It also ensures that, in the letter of intent, that the preserve, over and above any other area or client, has the rights to that effluent before anybody else. This is significant. We could not have moved forward with the rest of negotiations had we not reached this settlement. The price of that pipeline is at about $700,000 for Saddlebrook Development Company to install and then maintain and operate for the lifetime of the golf courses. In addition to those negotiated terms, the other areas that were not negotiated but are also considered important or relevant for the entire community are a couple. First of all, the existing Mountain View Pro Shop, if we should choose by vote to purchase these golf courses, will be converted to additional meeting space. The area, the existing Mesquite fitness area where aerobics classes and the like are, which were slated to become meeting rooms, will have a new floating wood floor installed and will provide additional areas for banquets as well as for our dance clubs and organizations. The Pro Shop will be replaced by a small starter shack. It's virtually not really a Pro Shop, just a small starter shack, no more than 800 square feet, which will be built near where the existing grills are on the Mesquite patio. The money needed to build that, no more than $150,000, will be taken from our Community Improvement Fund, the CIF fund, which we went live with last July 1. That means no new monies or additional monies from homeowners will be needed in order to fund that particular pro shop. Some of the other benefits also being anticipated are that the golf courses would be open in non-operating hours for use by homeowners as walking paths. The cost, as I mentioned before, is $2 million for the golf courses. One of the other benefits, if we do purchase the golf courses, is that we will not have to move our common areas maintenance yard outside of the existing Mountain View golf course maintenance yard. If we don't purchase the golf courses, then we will have to vacate that area because a third party definitely isn't going to want us in there with them. The area where that will most likely be built is the area that we're trying to acquire for additional pickleball courts. So the association would be out about $250K immediately in order to build the new common areas yard, and it would be most likely the area where we anticipate that the new pickleball courts would go. With regard for payment for the golf courses, as I mentioned, the price is $2 million. That would be due at the time of closing on the golf course, which will be concurrent with transition, which, if all goes as planned, will be January 1 of 2018. How will we fund that $2 million? The $2 million will be a loan from our existing reserve funds. We do have ample funds associated with the lifetime, excuse me, I need to back up a little bit. That $2 million would be repaid over 20 years in a payment of $100,000 a year. During the time that we would be repaying that, as well as continuing to augment our reserve funds, we never anticipate, according to our finance committee and the rest of our financial people, any time in which having taken that $2 million will put us in a negative situation with regard to the reserve fund. Am I missing anything, guys? Oh, yes. In addition to the payback on an annual basis of $100,000, there would be a one-time assessment per household of $185 occurring in 2018. Oh, and then the other part, it's a good thing I have everybody here. I wasn't realizing I was going to have to do this part today. With regard to the paying back the reserves, running golf courses, running the rest of our community, a 5-year plan, a 5-year financial plan is currently in draft form, hoping to be finalized within the next month. The finance committee and our controller, who were the group that built the 5-year plan, once that was completed, they met with the Golf Task Force finance team and looked at the numbers needed for operating the golf courses, both on an annual with regard to operations costs as well as capital items, those items you don't purchase annually, but you do purchase during the life cycle of a golf course. Similar to in your own home, operating expenses are those things like food, gas, utilities, those things you need on an annual basis versus capital expenses, HVAC units, painting the house, new roof, that type of thing. So there are two different funding sources for those that need to be taken care of. Based upon the current draft of the 5-year plan, dues for the next 5 years are estimated to go up no more than an average of 2.8% over the next 5 years. So what does that mean? It means approximately a $60 dues increase per year for the next 5 years. Our dues are currently $1,980 for 2017. So for 2018, you would assume that our dues would then be $2,040. In 2019, the 2040 would go up to 2,100. And then in 20, it will go up to 2,160. At the point we reach 5 years, we feel that it will probably be leveled out by then. We'll have the golf courses in a more stable situation, and we don't assume well, it's hard to go out past 5 years anyway, because that's always the future, but we figure we should be stabilized at that point in time. So what's been happening since we did the original presentations? Since that time, we've had for the last year, but very active over the last 12 days or so has been the email site where individuals have been able to ask questions with regard to the information we presented in the presentations, as well as all the additional information that's currently on our HOA2 website. The individuals I'm sitting with today, or that are sitting here today, have all been diligent in answering those questions. Based upon the questions that we received most commonly, a frequently asked question document was built. We sent out an email blast last Friday, and that is now also sitting on the HOA website. However, as you entered the building today, I think most of you were handed a copy of the frequently asked questions. So I'm assuming that maybe some of the questions that may come up today may actually be answered in this document. If that's the case, it's okay. We'll just simply, do a brief summary, but then also tell you which question number addresses that particular question in detail. So where do we go from here? Once again, what we'll be doing is we have microphones on both sides of the auditorium. If you have a question, we ask that you come up to the mic, and if, just go ahead and form a line behind the person in front of you. We will, you have 2 minutes to state your question or your comments. At that time, we'd also ask that you give us your name and your unit and lot number. We will then answer that question. We ask that you only ask one question at a time and then go to the end of the line. You can ask as many questions as you want, but what we're trying to do is ensure that we keep the lines going so every individual has an opportunity to ask questions. With that, I'd like to go ahead and open the floor up for questions.
Cyril in Unit 25. I want to thank the committee for excellent work. I saw you streaming last week in Hawaii, and I was very impressed. I do have 2 questions. One, will the buy-in for the annual golf membership be the same? 1. And 2, in the past 20 years or so, there was a huge flood in Tucson, which caused several golf courses to be destroyed or almost bankrupt. I'm wondering, and there are, of course, other things, frost. I'm wondering what amount of money you have in reserve, if any, for a $500,000 catastrophe. Thank you.
Okay, if finance would handle the first question, please, which is regarding what I'm assuming are the annual pay card. Okay, all right.
As far as the annual fee going up, we're projecting right now maybe $50, and I believe it went up $100 this year. So we'd like to get as many of those as we can, but I'm going to pass this for the second part of that question. You going to take that?
Basically, I think I can answer the second part of the question. It was asked about a catastrophe. First of all, the financials that are on the website do show that we will have insurance on this course. Our general manager, Damon Williams, has already taken our existing agent who provides the coverage for all the rest of the HOA. He has toured the 2 golf courses and the facilities associated with them and given us a quote for the cost of taking care of those. So if it were an actual true catastrophe, in most instances, you would assume that would be handled by our liability insurance. Other than that, if it's normal wear and tear that we need to address, we're assuming that funding the reserves initially up front at $400K a year will give us the buildup we need in the outlying years to do the maintenance required or the upkeep. And all of that's on the website. This side, please.
Tony Dreesen, Unit 17, Lot 102. 2 comments. Number 1, thank you for all of the work that's gone into these and the education process. I think it's been very thorough. Number 2, you may want to specifically mention, because of the number of new people that are unfamiliar with the other, that there's that one page in the slide presentation that does a great job of succinctly describing the pros and cons. If people don't want to dig through pages and pages of financial material, there is the one slide that is really well done. Thank you.
Thank you. What he's referring to is when you go to the HOA2 website, as soon as you log in, you get an automatically pop-up window. And if you click on that, it'll take you to all of the documents that we currently have voted for your review. You could actually watch a live streamed, well, it's not live anymore, but it was live when it was originally streamed, of the presentation upon which I gave and went through all of the PowerPoint slides. However, if you don't want to do that, or if you've been at earlier presentations and all you want to do is go over in your mind a particular area, the actual PowerPoint presentation itself is there without anything other than those slides. And the slide he's referring to it's at least 2/3 of the way through, maybe a little bit further. And basically what it does is it outlines the purchase versus non-purchase scenarios and what is included or not included in that manner.
Teresa, slide 43.
Slide 43. Okay, this side.
My name is Bob Wall, Lot 95, Unit 36. What contingencies are proposed if your income projections fall short? That is, if golf course operations turn out to be a continuous deficit like food and service operations have been, what's the contingency plan?
Go ahead.
Are you asking what's the likelihood of I'm
asking if we lose a lot of money on this golf course like we have on food and beverage, what's the contingency plan? What if it becomes unsustainable?
Okay, basically, if let's say you're saying if losses exceed expectations.
No, I say if losses, I don't know what expectations of losses are. If losses become unsustainable, what do we do?
That'll be up to a future board to decide how to handle it.
So we don't have an answer. We haven't thought
Well,
about that.
I think all of our projections and what we've learned about the golf courses say that they should not become unsustainable. We did a plus and minus estimate during the process of doing the financial analysis. And, I don't know how you define unsustainable, but there's just really no reason to think they will become unsustainable.
Well, okay.
This side.
I guess we just take the loss if it does.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Steve Lindquist. I'm Lot 98, Unit 45. First, I wanted to thank all of you for the great job you did. And the next thing I wanted to say was that I was surprised at the number of people in here that had not seen the presentation. And I would urge everybody here that has not seen that presentation to get online and look at it. It does an outstanding job of laying out all the pluses and minuses, and this is a major decision for our community, and I don't know how anybody could vote yes or no until they had at least looked at that presentation and have a good understanding. And if you look at it, it'll give you a very good understanding and an answer to probably all the questions that are in this paper, and you may have think of others. The one question I had, I'm relatively new to the community, a little over a year, but this golf course acquisition is kind of tied to the transition as well, even though we've got it as a separate subject here today. But one of the questions I wanted to ask, because I don't know the answer to it, is when we do the transition and we've decided maybe we're going to buy the golf courses and we're transitioning, the clubhouses and all the other facilities, is there a cost associated with the community bringing those over in transition? Or is that, do we already own those facilities?
We already own all of those facilities. In addition, since 2003, we have not been subsidized at all by the developer, which means that since 2003, it's been our homeowner dues that have paid for all of the operations, the capital expenses, and the funding of our reserves. There is not going to be an assessment with regard to.
Thank you again, you guys, for a great job you did.
Thank you. Sir?
Thank you for your presentation and all the work you did. My name's Vern Redding, lot 32, or unit 32, Lucky 13. I have one question. I know the developer is not going to get the vote on the golf courses, 300 votes. What about any future improvements to the golf courses? Will they be able to use 300 votes?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Okay, the developer's not going to vote on the purchase of the golf courses, but after that's done, if they are purchased, does the developer, if he has 200 lots, get to vote on any other assessments where we might have on the golf courses?
Assessments. Okay, I'm going to try and answer your. Okay, no, I'll let Damon take it because apparently he heard.
How's the developer going to be able? Will the developer be able to vote on improvements to the golf courses in the future?
The way that the task force put together the 5-year projections and a 25-year reserve funding model for the golf courses, there should be no assessments for any major renovations to the golf course. They're actually built into the financial projections that have already been done. That's complete irrigation renovations for both golf courses in the next 25 years, which may or may not take place, although the funding model shows that they'll be funded. All the way to greens rebuilds on both golf courses in the next 25 years, which again remains to be seen where that'll even need to be funded. But those numbers are actually already in the projections.
Yeah, but you didn't answer the question.
The developer will not be voting after transition. The developer will not vote on.
But they'll have, say he has 300 lots. That's 300 votes.
He can still vote his lots.
So you answer, can I clarify? So the developer will have 300 votes after this one vote, correct?
The developer will have the 300 lots or X number of lots until he sells all of his lots, yes.
Yes. So
he may be able to vote for the next 20 years.
That, I just wanted clarification on
yes.
That now. Yeah. So I'll have another question about weight line.
Wait, this may help too. In order for the community to get involved in a vote on a special assessment, the assessment has to be over $300. And as Damon suggested, everything's been built into the financials to cover all of the maintenance costs that have, that you could possibly think of, the irrigation system, equipment to maintain the course, etc. So again, a vote is only required if the assessment is over $300. So, if we spend money on the course and it's underneath that threshold, then Robeson would not be able to exercise that vote.
Okay.
I got a second question about weight.
I am Mike Cousins, Unit 32. 118 is the lot number. My question is, once or if it's purchased, you or the HOA2 has full authority. You have the golf course maintenance, and then you've got the strip that is HOA2 provides near the land we live on, golf hole number 3. Do we have the right to clear the area all the way down to the golf course?
There is currently on hold a I know what you're getting to. It's what are we going to do about the areas that right now has been considered no man's land with regard, is it the golf course crew that maintains those areas, or is it our own common areas crews? And it's been kind of divided up over the years in an informal way. If we choose to purchase the golf course, the entire area, including that strip, which is currently the no man's land between golf course and your own personal property, will be the responsibility of the homeowners association.
Of the association, not of the individual.
There is currently it's not a policy, it's a, well, yeah, there was a request to build a policy with regard to exactly what you're talking for, who's going to maintain, or what can a homeowner who has land who's adjacent to this land, what are their rights and responsibilities? That's on hold until we figure out whether we're going to own the golf courses or not. Once we know that, then we can make that decision.
In other words, the board has made no decision if you purchase it as to what the homeowner is going to be allowed.
Correct. There's nothing at this time. That's going to wait till after we figure out if we own the golf courses or not.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes.
Ted Reingold, I think it's Unit 24. My wife knows these things, I don't. The question has to do with opportunity cost, lost. When you talked about the Mesquite being, some work being done on the Mesquite area, is there any plans for the locker rooms or change areas, which are really substandard in many ways? And it has to do with opportunity cost loss. By utilizing or by investing in this golf course, are we missing or not able to do other things we would want to do to maintain this facility and this development?
Actually, on July 7th, we will be getting back the bid on the complete renovation of the Mesquite Grill building. So regardless of whether we purchase, we will be in that building. Et cetera, will occur.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hello, I'm Steve Ford. We live in Unit 47, Lot 99. We've been here for 11 years, and in as much as HOA2 is subsidizing our restaurant operations well north of $500,000 a year, and yet for 11 years the food has been at best hit or miss. They continue to lose money. It's just a poorly run operation. Nothing has changed, though many attempts have been made. My concern is if we can't run a restaurant, how are we going to run 2 golf courses? And when the cost of running these golf courses, if the management approaches anything near the abysmal level of the restaurants, how much money are we going to have to come back to the homeowners to cover the costs? This really concerns me. It just, how are we going to run? Who is going to run it? Who's going to make these decisions? And how are those decisions going to be measurably better than what we've seen in the failure of the restaurants?
Thank you. Can somebody give me a slide number with regard, oh wait, I might be able to do it myself. Damon, but in the meantime, while I'm looking for that, Damon, would you please explain to our audience what your background is?
Teresa, I'll first start saying that these communities, when they started being built in 1960 by Mr. Dale Webb, Mr. Robeson worked for Dale Webb. Toll Brothers does these. There's other builders nationwide that build these large-scale active adult communities. Jimmy Buffett's actually getting ready to get in the business and start one's called Margaritaville. The restaurants in these communities are built 15 to 20 miles outside of metropolitan areas. If you look at the standards around for the past 30 years, they put F&B facilities in these things because there isn't anything around them. As growth happens, Growth comes to these communities. I've been in this business 23 years. It comes to these communities. You could build one. They built the ranch. The growth will be at the ranch within the next 15 to 20 years. My point being is there's a lot of Sun Cities around the nation that aren't in the F&B business anymore. Amount, that didn't work. They didn't want the subsidies. The board in the future years will have to make the decision on the subsidies. You're not going to make money in these restaurants. Quail Creek just is in the process of spending $500,000 to expand their restaurant to increase their loss by $100,000 a year. It's an amenity. It's simply an amenity. We have a plan going forward to get that down in the mid 300s. And from my analysis on F&B, I don't think we can get it any lower going forward. You know, the Mesquite's going to be the telltale sign of that, to be honest with you. I think that we may be able to get a little lower than 350 in the next few years. By the way, I just came across the 2014 5-year plan this morning, and they projected $100 annual dues increases for the 5 years from 15 through 19. That took into account no golf courses. So we've been way under that. We had no dues increase for 2017. We're projecting 2.7, 2.8% dues increase going forward for the next 5 years, which has not been approved yet by the board. That's going to be pretty standard, to be honest with you. No matter how much we spend on the golf courses, you're going to see a dues increase from cost of inflation, if nothing else. Back to the other question, my background, I'm 23 years with the Golf Course Superintendents Association. I'm a certified golf course superintendent, one of 1,400 in the whole world. I'm also a professional community association manager, one of 2,300 in the world. I ran multi-course facilities in Hilton Head and Myrtle Beach in my golf career. So yes, I do understand the golf business as a business.
I also think that it would be helpful to give you an overall perspective if you go through the slide presentation, which is very detailed about all the costs associated with the endeavor.
In addition, one of the things we also did, Steve, was we had Borders Management Company come in and spend 2 solid days with the task force and negotiation committee in Damon, working up a marketing report on ways to generate income and reduce expenses. So I think, and that's also on the website for individuals to look at. Yes.
Vern Reading again. I assume the goal of this committee was to try to negotiate your best deal, but the idea was to buy golf courses. Say the vote doesn't approve the golf courses. That means negotiations probably will be opened up again on 1 or 2 of the courses. Am I correct?
No. We are moving directly into the rest of transition negotiations.
So then, so what would, can anybody, my expertise in negotiation. So my understanding is I don't know what the strategy with this, but the goal is to buy golf courses. Initially 1, now it's 2. Am I wrong so far?
Yes.
Yeah. So, you know, I mean, they're kind of a losing proposition. But you know, the developer here, from my expertise, and I negotiate contracts for over 25 years, over $1 million, and I do national training on it. The developer out-negotiated, not you guys, the transmission community, and they're taking advantage of us. Nobody's going to pay $2 million. I would let it drop and renegotiate.
Thank you for your comments. However, we will not renegotiate golf courses. I'm just letting everybody know that if you think that by voting no, we're going back to the table, we are not. They will move forward with selling to a third party, and we'll move forward with finishing our transition negotiations.
Yeah.
The reason we have to have the answers with golf courses addressed first is the common areas yard and a few other areas where if we don't purchase the golf courses, we have to ensure that we get the land we need to develop a new common areas yard. Thank you.
Trace, when we started this about 14 months ago, and we only had 1 golf course on the table at that time, and then we got about 6 months into the process, and Robeson changed his mind and said, no, now you can have both golf courses. So we had to start all over again. It's been, and it's always been with the idea that if we don't purchase them, then somebody else will. We don't get a second bite at the apple. And a matter of fact, there was a point in negotiations where we were ready to walk away because he had taken away some of the things he originally said he was going to give us. And we said, unless those things come back, then this is a no-brainer. We don't want to put the community at jeopardy. So I can tell you, after having spent 14 months of my life on this, and having gone through a stroke and everything else in the process, everything that's been done has been done in order to ensure that we don't get caught up in a catch-22. And we have worked diligently. I would take offense at anybody that says this committee has not done its due diligence.
Thank you.
I'm Ruth Felt, and I live in Unit 25, Lot 13. And I have a general question. My husband and I have been out of town for several months, so this is the first opportunity we've been able to hear what's going on. And my main question is, the RV lots, is Robeson keeping those, or is this part of this purchase? And I also want to thank Damien. I do believe that you're correct in assuming that the Mesquite will be the tail spinner. It has always been a moneymaker. And on the weekends and lunch and breakfast, it was waiting room only.
With regard to the RV storage, no, Mr. Robeson has no intention of turning that over or selling it to us. It's a little moneymaker for him.
Yes, I figured as much. Thank you.
The question was, as we move forward, or whether it was part of the golf course purchase or future transition negotiations, what happens to the RV storage area that's currently off of Ridgeview? And the answer is it remains with Mr. Robeson.
Ron Betschke, Unit 42, Lot 28. I'd like to go over a little bit the valuation of the golf course, which is I finally was able, thanks to Joyce and Mike, able to get some more details that are presented in the presentation, and particularly in the board's presentation, it says that there are 3 methods of evaluating the golf course, and the one that they recommended and the one that our committee chose was 1 times revenue for the golf course. The problem is, as the board's thing says very specifically, is all these methods of evaluation are based on performing golf courses, and performing golf courses are ones that make money. Our golf courses, using the data provided by RCI, have lost an average of $182,000 a year for the last 3 years. And for some reason, our projections assume that we will wind up in a profit position in a few years. And as a negotiator, if we went back and asked Vern, it's a poor negotiating point from our point to project that we can make things turn around and make profits. Therefore, we should pay for that in advance. So the $2 million price is seriously in question. If we used a method of some sort of capitalization of cash flow, or we would come up with a negative number, not a positive number of 2 million. So the other question becomes, my question is, can you justify using the method that you used? I'm out of time.
Ron, there was no discussion about the price from Mr. Robeson's perspective. It was $2 million, period. We tried to get around that. We tried to see if he would move one or the other. That's his price. That's when we started trying to look for offsets against the $2 million. And we negotiated the offsets that we did. But the price itself was his price, non-negotiable. Second point is, I would request that you go online and check out the marketing report we have, because the projections we made were not just out of the air. They were based upon information that we got from professionals and with our own people in-house.
Can I address that?
Actually, let's go over
Yeah,
here
sure.
and then you can come, we'll come back.
Real quick, Teresa, the board's recommendations actually recommend us, the value of these two courses combined to be $2.7 million as a decent purchase offer. The average cost to build a basic median standard golf course in this day and age is $6 to $8 million for one golf course. What this is really about, for those of you who have not seen the presentation that this group put together, is about your home values going forward. So please look at the presentation. If you do the math, the $185 one-time assessment comes out to roughly $560,000. What it boils down to is each rooftop here is going to spend 50 cents an acre to buy these golf courses.
Thank you, Damon. Sir.
Thank you, Teresa. This is Ken Padram, Unit 23, Lot 114. For the finance people, I'm assuming that the $60 increase includes both capital expenditures and operating expenses. Is that correct?
That is correct. That'll cover, that $60 will provide enough funds to cover operating expenses and to build the reserve to cover capital expenditures.
That's for the whole HOA. That's not for golf. That dues increases for the entire HOA.
I understand. With regards
Excuse
to...
me, that was a question. Let me go back over to Ron and then I'll come back to you. Thank you.
Ron Betschke again. The point I was trying to make when I talked about valuation is how a third party would value it so that we might make a bid that reflects something. No third party would make a bid for these golf courses, not only because of their operating, but because they don't include the facilities that golf course owners want. Clubhouses, restaurants, catering facilities, fitness centers, all those things which are already owned by the golf course. Now, I have spoken to a couple of people who are in the golf course brokerage business. They said the value of these properties to a third party is negative. They would not make a bid. So my point was, how do we value it from our viewpoint? And so we have picked a value, as Mike has said, that Robeson insists on getting. Well, that doesn't mean that's the price that we should pay because he has no other option. Would Robeson let the golf courses go fallow, as the scare tactics of the presentation said? There is no chance. He sells his lots in the preserve at $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 premiums. His losses are $100,000 a year. He is not going to let those courses go fallow.
Byron.
So the point is, what is a better bid? It's too late. We've already done it, and most of us, many of us, including myself, have already voted. And based upon what I've heard, this golf course is going to be approved as a purchase. But the purchase price, it should be noted, is you have not justified it yet, and I'm waiting for the answer.
Byron, before you start, let me add, the losses of the last 3 years that Robeson shows on his financials that we were privy to look at and are actually on the slide presentation, Robeson doesn't capitalize items. He doesn't need to. So all the greens rebuilds he did 2 years ago in Mountain View to the tune of almost $500,000 were in the operational expenses. They were also closed for 5.5 months that year with no revenue, and they still only lost $100 and some thousand as for 2 courses combined. These courses have not lost money in normal operating years. The last 3 years, 14, 15, 16, have had anomalies where they've not been full normal operating years. So if you factor that back in and you capitalize the work he's done on these 2 courses to get them ready for a sale, then they've not lost money. That's a misnomer you're stating to this crowd.
I'm only reading the financials.
Okay, thank you. Sir?
I was going to say a couple of things there. Is this on? Yeah. Okay, first of all, Robeson thinks they can get 2 million. If they think they can, they probably already talked to some third parties and have a pretty good idea of what they can get. Secondly, any third party that buys this has got a built-in insurance policy. they can very simply come to the homeowners association and say, we need a subsidy. And we're going to be in a tough position not to give them a subsidy if they threaten to turn the water off. So they have an insurance policy built in. Thirdly, if you look at what's likely to happen over the next 10 years or so in terms of population changes, population is coming out this direction. Somebody with a long-term view of things could say, I'm going to buy these golf courses now. I'm going to extract a subsidy from the homeowners association. And in 10 years or so, I'm going to be able to make money because the population out here will have built up. So.
Thank you. Okay, sir.
Thank you, Therese.
Mm-hmm.
Well, another question for the finance people. As far as the capital expenditures are concerned, and over the next 25 years that they are stretched out to be paid for, what was the inflation rate that was associated with those projections?
Okay, with capital expenditures, we did not put any inflation rate in. That's in today's dollars, which is the easiest thing to understand. The problem with trying to put inflators in when you look at very long periods of time is that the numbers out 10, 15, 20 years don't mean anything, because you can't really project inflation that far out. I don't think any expert PhD economist could project inflation out that far.
Well, it's interesting that you've been able to project inflation for the expense side of things and not the capital side of things. What you're saying to the group is that the $12 to $13 million for capital could potentially turn into be maybe 25 million, 30 million, or more.
The reserve study that was done for the whole association in 2016 assumed a 1.6 inflation. I looked at the capital for the golf course at 1.6 inflation, and the approximately $12 million could get as high as 16. Certainly not 20 or 30 or 40.
Well, that's 1.6, and there has been no 25-year period in the last 75 years where you have only had a 1 point whatever percentage in the way of inflation. But that's not my question. My question
Actually,
is,
no, you did have a question. Now, let me go to this side and then we'll come back to you. Mm-hmm.
I'm Dwight Baum, Unit 42, Lot 104. Actually, I have a suggestion and then a question. And I guess the suggestion would be mostly predicated on a yes vote on the golf courses. But the suggestion would be to make HOA 2 more of a country club environment and potentially increase revenues. Have more events at the clubhouses, more like what HOA 1 does. You go down there for dinner, and they'll have a trivia going on and the place is packed or whatever. And I'm not big on trivia. The other thing would be to require the golf pros to organize and run more golf events, such as couple scrambles, holiday events. My question would be, once the golf course question is decided, what are the types of things remaining for the rest of the transition? And are there any potential major costs that could affect residents?
Okay, so your question is, when it comes down to after the decision's been made by us residents as to whether we're owning or not owning the golf courses, and then we get into transition negotiations, are there big ticket items? That's what I'm hearing?
Well, yes, and what remains in the transition besides the golf courses? What are the types of things you'll be transitioning out of or into or whatever?
Transition will include, as I mentioned, we've been on our own basically since 2003. Almost every piece of property has been deeded over to us. Most of the rest of transition is cleanup. It's ensuring that all of the deeds are in fact transferred in our names. It's to ensure that we did a drainage and engineering study last year. There were a couple of items in there that are definitely RCI should be on the hook for, and they know it, to make sure that we get the monies we need to take care of those items. In addition, the other area will be, since Saddlebrook Development Company will still have approximately 300 lots to sell, there will be areas where, excuse me, he's going to want assurances that we are going to maintain the common areas and properties, particularly, well, everywhere, but he, you know, the homes he has to sell primarily are in the preserve, and he's going to want to ensure that he still has at least a look inside. What kind of renovations are we going to do to clubhouses, that type of thing? The last area that I think there may be some topic of discussion about is with regard to our insurance that for particularly, once again, in the preserve, and it will be Unit 50 also, is while he's constructing in those areas, he will be putting big equipment on those roads. In other words, they could very well bring damage to the roads or wear and tear earlier on than expected. So we will be negotiating some type of an arrangement to ensure that if the roads are damaged, once he's done with construction, he brings them back to where they need to be. And I think those are it. Those are the big ones. Really, after getting through golf courses, the rest of transition seems so easy to me.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
Tony Dreesen, Unit 17, Lot 102. In your prepared materials, I know we're paying $2 million. What's the total acreage that we're getting for the $2 million? I know it's in the numbers, but it's large,
approximately 363 acres.
So you're getting one of the asset questions.
Right, which is approximately 73% of our entire green space. Right. That's not 73% of all of the area that makes up Saddlebrook. It's approximately 73% of all the areas that we consider green space, common areas.
So we're paying $2 million and we get, again, how many acres?
363 acres.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think, okay.
Hi, my name is Ian Ewing. I'm Unit 28, Lot 42. Actually asking this question for a snowbird that's not here with us today. It has to do with the pipeline that RCI, or whatever the corporate name is we're using to build the pipeline. Do we have any idea, because water is the #2 cost, I think labor's #1 for golf courses. Do we have any idea what that water, that gray water, is actually going to cost us based on the length of the pipe, the routing of the pipe, the size of the pipe, the number of pump stations that are going to be required to get that water to us? And do we know that indeed there's going to be sufficient gray water available?
To answer some of those questions, the cost of effluent right now, today's cost, is 58 cents per 1,000 gallons of effluent. So it's much, much cheaper than potable. Potable is either 0.85 or 0.87, depending upon which water company is supplying that water. As far as is there enough effluent to cover the course the entire year, the answer is no. We have average water use for the last 5 years. We know how much potable water was used. We know how much effluent was used. And even if all of the available effluent gets up to the preserve golf course, and it will with the new pipeline, we are still about 84, 85, maybe 86 acre feet of water of shortfall. So we would have to use potable water for that. However, having said all that, we are, with that new pipeline, we are saving approximately $150,000 a year in cost in CAGR fees.
And the difference that Bob's talking about, which we figure, I think, Joyce, about $50K a year, is included in our financial projections for costs associated with using potable water up at the preserve, as well as the CAGR fees associated with it.
Okay, this isn't another question, but just to follow up on your comment. So if we're saving $150,000 a year on this gray water, what are the increased costs to us, the association, to provide the water to preserve?
None.
None.
there's no cost for the water?
No, just the 58 cents per thousand gallon.
Okay. Thank you.
I just want to assure you do understand, sir, that Robeson is paying for the pipeline. Okay.
Thank you. This is Ken Patcham again. Several individuals that I've talked to have a concern and a misunderstanding, and maybe you can clarify the policies that the homeowners have that differentiate between the ballpark people and the dog park people and the pickleball people that have to pay for their operations and the upcoming presupposed numbers that are going to be charged to the homeowners for the operation of the golf course. There's policies that are, I'm sure, in place. If you could elaborate on them, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you. I think this has to do with right now, pickleball, softball, dog park, and horseshoes all pretty much fund themselves. The HOA pays for work outside of their areas, but is that what you're referring to?
Correct.
Okay. And from the perspective of in about 2010, this was pre-me on the board, there was at that time a policy written by the board that said that new amenities would be funded by those areas that were going to get the bang for the buck from them. My belief is that the new board coming post transition is probably going to very seriously look at that and choose to do something about it.
And the policy right now is?
That new amenities or amenities that weren't part of the package that became part of what you were getting when you were getting your home would fund themselves, so to speak.
So what you're saying is that this number of $60 that you're going to charge each one of the homeowners is diametrically opposed to the policy that is currently in effect. Is that correct?
No. Not really, because what we're doing is acquiring an asset. We currently, and when the board at that time put this policy into effect, it was land that was already part of the association. However, an entity, a group of people wanted to develop it to do something with it. However, as I said, I believe the whole policy is going to be reviewed and retorqued come January.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Sir.
Again, Sterling Unit 25. What exactly is going to be done with the pro shop at the preserve? And did I hear you insinuate that Robeson might have some control over what we do with that building as far as design, decoration, comes in and says, this is getting shabby, we got to fix this up thing? Or are we in full control of that building and everything at the preserve, actually? Yeah. Oh. Except the unsold lots.
The pro shop at the preserve will pretty much stay as it is. We don't intend to build another pro shop up there. What I was referring to with regard to post-transition is that, for example, right now we're doing some things at the preserve this coming winter when we're in the overseed portion. We're putting a whole new floor in the bar. We're reupholstering bar stools that are currently in adverse condition. And I can't remember. There was something else we were going to do up there. We took the opportunity to define what the flooring is going to be up there. We had our own designer define the products that we want to use for moving forward with doing the refurbishment. What we did was we ran them by their design center to say, this is what we're intending to do. Do you have any angst? And they said no. And that's pretty much the way it's been. It's just more or less a courtesy call amongst both organizations to ensure that one doesn't feel like the other's pulling something over them. It's in our benefit to maintain our facilities as best we can, because new homes mean more dues coming in, means less that we have to collect from those of us that are already here. What I'm saying is that at least for the time he still has about 300 homes to build, we'll probably end up working with him to agree that we're both happy with what we're going to do. It's really no different than what we do today, and we really aren't having any issues with it. There is no contract at this time.
They have an entire interior design team at Corporate Robeson, which when we utilize them for anything, like Tree said, it's mainly for, yes, we agree with that, go for it. As far as color schemes and things of that nature, it's a free service to us and probably always will be, instead of us having to go out and hire an interior designer.
Are there any other questions? If there are not, then for those of you who haven't viewed the presentation, please take the time to go ahead and view it. And on the presentation, it does have the email address if you want to submit any additional questions. As I mentioned, the FAQ sheet that you have in front of you will be updated as needed as more questions are asked that seem to run a common theme. And with that, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chris.